Hi, and welcome to my channel, Sky Scout VR. I'm Martin Muñoz, and I'll be the pilot flying today. For those asking about the setup, it's a very simple setup. So I've got the Oculus, so you'll need a VR headset. There are many brands out there, and so I'm not doing free advertising for anyone. Then I've got the yoke, I've got my throttles, and I've got my rudder pedals here. That's what's needed basically to fly. I must make it clear, this is not flying school. I'm not teaching anyone how to fly, though I am flying, but it's more about visuals, just enjoying the scenes and seeing what our world looks like from above. So we are here in Arba Minch, Hotel Alpha Alpha Mike. Arba Minch is in Ethiopia, and we're headed to Lodwar, Hotel Kilo Lima Oscar. I've done all my pre-flight configurations. We're just ready to take off now. Okay, airspeed active. V1 and rotate. Positive rate of climb, gear up. Once we've passed 400 feet and 115 knots, flaps up. And we're heading south, sort of southwestish. And heading to Kenya. Yeah. Heading to Kenya, Lodwar. And that water body you see to the left is Lake Chamo. The water body you see to the left is Lake Chamo. And what we didn't see when we were taking off was Lake Abaya. Lake Abaya is a copper brown water, and it's that color because of the volcanic sediment. Now we have the cooler blue, Lake Chamo, and there's a strip of land between the two lakes, which they call the Bridge of God. The locals call the Bridge of God. You can see it on the screen to the right as I was zooming in. So that's Lake Chamo, and another thing to note about this area here, to the, you see, I'm flying southwards, but when you look at the map, you're looking at it with a northern orientation. So I have to get my west and east orientation while I'm flying south. So to the east of Lake Chamo, which is to our left over here, is Nechsar National Park. Nechsar in Amharic is white grass. And the park began with a 1965 UNESCO survey recommending protection of the area's population of the swans, hartebeest, amongst other wildlife. So Nechsar is best known for its large herd of Burchell's plain zebra, Grant's gazelle, greater kudu, dik-dik, spotted hyena, leopard, cheetah, and a small resident lion population. In a survey in 2009, they had under 25 individual lions. The lake's northwestern shore, which is now under us, right where we're passing, is nicknamed the Crocodile Market, where a large number of Nile crocodiles gather to bask. It also has around 300 to 340 bird species which have been recorded, including kingfishers, storks, pelicans, flamingos, and the African fishy game. Yeah. So as we keep tracking south, the highland green fades into that ochre plain. Yeah? So that's the lower Omo Valley, one of the most ethnically diverse pockets of land on earth. Below lies Turmi, home of the Hamar people, known for the Ukuli Bula, which is the bull jumping ceremony that marks a young man's passage into adulthood. Further on is Omorate, home to the Daasanach, agro-pastoralists whose lives follow the Omo River, which is a seasonal river. The Omo River's seasonal floods. The Omo itself runs for over 700 kilometers from the Ethiopian highlands before it fades into the wide delta, which is coming up ahead of us. And the last stretch of land before we get to Kenya. So a bit about the lower Omo Valley. The lower Omo Valley is in southwestern Ethiopia and is one of the most geographically striking, culturally rich, and historically profound regions on earth. Sitting within the Great Rift Valley, it serves as the ultimate bridge between the Ethiopian highlands and the arid Lake Turkana basin. The primary geographical feature in the lower Omo Valley is the Omo River, a powerful meandering river fed by heavy rainfall in the Ethiopian highlands, which is over 400 miles to the north. It carries millions of tons of nutrient-rich silt as it winds south towards Kenya. The Omo River is an endorheic river, which means it has no outlet to the ocean. Instead, it empties directly into Lake Turkana, providing over 90% of the lake's total water inflow. So as we fly south, you can see the lush mountainous green terrain of the highlands gives way to the sun-baked ochre plains, acacia savannas, volcanic hills, and dramatic river gorges. When you look at the Omo Valley from a cultural human heritage point of view, you can say it is home to more than 8 distinct indigenous tribes, totaling around 200,000 people. It is famous for being one of the few places where ancient pastoralists and agro-pastoralists traditions remain intact. So you've got the Hamar, who are famous for their bull jumping rites of passage and elaborate hair beadwork centered around Turmi. Then you've got the Mursi and Suri, known globally for the clay lip plates worn by the women in the ceremonial stick fighting, which is known as Donga. Then you've got the Daasanach, inhabiting the southern delta near Omorate, practicing flood retreat agriculture along riverbanks. Then you've got the Karo and the Nangatom, renowned for intricate body painting using natural white chalk and colored ochre. So the Lower Omo Valley was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1980 because of its fossil sites. Discoveries here, such as the Omo Kibish human remains dating back to nearly 200,000 years, have been critical to understanding the origin of modern Homo sapiens. So now if you look at the screen on the right, and you look over the cockpit to the left, you can see that water body. That water body is Cheo Bahir, historically known as Lake Stephanie or Lake Istephanos. And it's a seasonal saline playa lake, meaning it's not a permanent body of water year-round. What's a playa? Well, a playa is like a salt-encrusted mudflat. So for most of the year, it exists as a vast, dry, salt-encrusted mudflat spanning the border area of southern Ethiopia and northern Kenya. However, its state changes depending on regional weather patterns. So during the dry season, it transforms into a sun-baked salt pan stretching across thousands of square miles of cracked earth. And in the wet season, during heavy rains in the Ethiopian highlands and seasonal rivers like the Waito and Sagan fill the basin, covering it into a shallow, converting it into a shallow, marshy lake. Check my instruments, just make sure everything is okay. Just inland along the western shores lies Kotome. In 1984, paleontologist Chamo, working with Dr. Richard Leakey, discovered Turkana boy, KNM-WT15000, here in Kotome. And the Turkana boy is a complete 1.5 million year Homo erectus skeleton, which remains one of the most significant fossil finds in human history. I've been fortunate to see that skeleton during the recording of one of my shows some years back. It sits in a vault at the National Museum of Kenya in Nairobi. That vault, I understand, can withstand a bomb blast, fire, anything. So this is a really well protected skeleton. So now we're approaching Lake Turkana's eastern shore. And the eastern shore of Lake Turkana is a stark, dramatic, wild landscape. While the western shore flattens into sandy plains towards Lodwar, the eastern side is defined by dark volcanic rocks, ancient fossil beds, and violent mountain winds. So unlike the sandy beaches on the west, the eastern shoreline is littered with black basalt boulders, volcanic cones, and jagged lava fields. On the northern stretch of the eastern shore, there's a 600 square mile park that protects both desert wildlife like the gravy zebras, reticulated. So in this part of the eastern side of the lake, you've got Sibiloi National Park, which stretches around 600 square miles, and it protects both desert wildlife like the gravy zebra, reticulated giraffes and cheetahs, and ancient petrified forests. So rising directly out of the lake off the eastern coast are Central Island and South Island. Central Island is an active volcanic complex featuring 3 crater lakes: Flamingo Lake, Crocodile Lake, and Dragon Lake. Then you have Mount Kulakal. It's dominating. Mount Kulakal is an extinct volcano rising over 7,000 feet. The gap between Mount Kulakal and the lake acts as a wind tunnel, funneling ferocious easterly winds across the water that can whip up sudden massive waves. So Lake Turkana sits in a harsh, hyper-arid desert, and unlike seasonal salt flats or playas like Chobahir, which we passed earlier on, that dry up completely, Turkana stays full year-round. It has no river flowing out of it, and water can only leave through atmospheric evaporation. But because of its massive scale, it stretches over 250 kilometers long and 32 kilometers wide. Traditionally, Turkana were nomadic herders, herding cattle, camel, and goat. But many Turkana along the western shore turned to fishing in Ferguson's Gulf, following severe droughts in 1960 and the 70s. Now, straight ahead, you've got Ferguson's Gulf, locally known as Longech, and is one of the most geographically interesting and culturally important features on the western side of Lake Turkana. Located near the town of Kalokol, it is a prominent visual landmark as you track south on approach to Lodwar. So Ferguson's Gulf is a broad, shallow bay formed by a long, narrow, sandy pit, that's the Longech Spit, that reaches out into Lake Turkana. It acts as a sheltered natural harbor protected from the lake's notoriously violent winds. Because it's extremely shallow, the Gulf size changes drastically depending on rainfall in Ethiopia and the water levels of Lake Turkana. During droughts, large portions of the Gulf dry up completely to marshland. During wet years, it transforms into a bustling open body of water. The warm, shallow, nutrient-rich water creates an ideal breeding ground for microscopic algae, which in turn attract massive shoals of tilapia and Nile perch. So the town of Callacol and Ferguson's Gulf serve as the primary hub for the region's commercial fishing trade. The Turkana people, who are traditionally pastoralists, who herded cattle, turned to fishing in Ferguson's Gulf during the devastating droughts in the 60s and in the 70s. It's also known as the dried fish capital because tons of fish are caught daily in the Gulf using small wooden boats. Then they're dried under the desert sun on the sandy banks and loaded onto trucks bound for Nairobi, Kitale, and international markets. But because of its massive scale, it stretches over 250 kilometers long and 32 kilometers wide, covering an area of roughly 6,400 square kilometers. It remains permanent despite the intense desert heat, because 90% of its water is continuously piped in by the Omo River, which collects massive rainfall from the distant Ethiopian highlands and pours it directly into the lake's northern tip. And that's my plane from outside. You can see Lodwar town there. You can see the lights below. I took off a bit late from Arba Minch. I was hoping that I'll make it to Lodwar in good light, but still it's not bad. Visually, it's beautiful with the last light of the day. And yeah, let's make our approach into Lodwar Airport. Should be to our right. And what inspired this particular flight is I saw a flight by Caliph Cairo on YouTube doing a similar approach into Lodwar. And that's actually what made me say, oh, actually, let me try and do an approach into Lodwar and see whether my visuals match his. And yes, you can see the hills up ahead, the Turquoise River below. So all this kind of matches what I saw on his flight into Lodwar. Mind you, this is my first time flying into Lodwar, so I mean, we are all seeing these views for the first time together. The River Turquoise. So you can see, nice. I love the contrast, the lights and the dusk feel. Hopefully, as we approach, we'll see some traffic on the road below. The simulator likes doing that, and I love it actually myself. It's not bad. Don't worry about the sink rate warning, it's normal. Yes, there's the traffic. You can see the headlights on the vehicles there on the traffic below. Beautiful. Anyway, this is my last attempt tonight. If I have to do a go around, I have to go land elsewhere because the airport doesn't have runway lights. But here we go. I think we have made it safely. There, touchdown. It's a very narrow runway. Oh my, almost went out. Anyway, there we are, safely on the ground. And yeah, thank you for flying with me. Thank you for enjoying the views. Yeah, we landed just before darkness. All right, as we say, over and out, and see you on the next flight. That was a beautiful flight. I hope you loved it as much as I did. Please send me your comments, your feedback, and also where you'd like me to fly you to next on the next show. Don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button, and let's enjoy the world one flight at a time.